Today, she's here to share her story, how she navigated challenges, embraced support, and is now building a future filled with hope for herself and her son. So if you guys would welcome me, or join me in welcoming Steph, I'm going to ask her to come up to the podium right now. Thank you for being here today. So I'm going to start out by asking this very first question of Steph. So can you share with everyone here what life was like for you and your son before connecting with Bridge of Hope, and what led you to the program, and what you were hoping that it could offer?
Bear with me, I'm a little nervous. I'm just going to get that out of the way before I start. So before connecting with Bridge of Hope, Hunter, my son, and I were actually living in the domestic violence shelter. We were safe there, but it definitely wasn't a home for us. It wasn't any sense of stability, and we didn't really have a family surrounding us. We really lacked that support. Everything felt very uncertain, and I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, which is what led me to reach out to Bridge of Hope. I think the thing that drew me the most was the prospect of the neighboring volunteers, and with where we were in our lives and how uncertain everything was. To have those neighboring volunteers to be able to surround us and be more of a support, and to bring hope and a sense of dignity back into our lives. So that's what led us to reaching out to Bridge of Hope.
I just wanted to say before moving on to the next question that the thing that I loved about Steph's story is that she was looking for neighboring volunteers. She wanted them to surround her. And I know that sometimes with some of our families, it's the thing that's a little ambiguous. They don't know what to expect. What's this neighboring volunteer group all about? So I think that it's wonderful that you were looking for that. So the next question I have is, can you describe the relationships that you and your son developed with the neighboring volunteers that we just mentioned, and what kind of emotional support they provided to the both of you during your time in the program?
So it's definitely been a journey. When I initially started with Bridge of Hope, I wasn't really sure what I was expecting out of the neighboring volunteers or what that relationship would turn into. Coming from the place that we were coming from, I was definitely closed off. I was a little reticent to let people in, to truly let people into our lives. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I took the opportunity to open up, to really allow my family to become my family, not just for me, but also for Hunter. I had been so used to managing, by getting through, by doing everything myself, by being the strong one. So for the first time ever, I really allowed people in and to see the hurt, to see the pain, to come along and meet me where I was at. Which is something I didn't think I would be able to do, but I also didn't think that other people would be able to come in and fulfill that part of my life. So I wouldn't trade it for the world. I've made so much growth since Hunter and I now have a new family that we were able to attain through Bridge of Hope, and it wasn't without them that I don't know where we would be.
So the next question I have is that I heard that you have a powerful story to tell about securing housing, right, in the exact location and school district that you'd hoped for. So just give us a sense of what steps did you take to make that happen, and what was the journey like for both you and your son?
This is probably one of the more interesting stories of kind of how we wound up where we are. But the only way that we got there was by me willing to be open, to let people in, and at that point we were going through a pretty brutal custody battle in court, and I decided to really let my lawyer in. And she came along, and she was my first support person that I let in before I started with Bridge of Hope, and she actually wound up buying a house for Hunter and I to live in, because housing is hard. Housing is really hard to find, especially as a single mom. So I think if it wasn't for her, I'm not sure where we would be. We were definitely on the hunt trying to find anything, and she surprised me and just said, I bought a house, you and Hunter are gonna move in, you're moving into Manheim Township, which was a really good school to get Hunter into. I was really excited about that, but it really gave us a sense of a home.
That is an amazing story, especially with the affordable housing crisis that
Yes.
we're in. So the next question is, how would you describe the difference between who you were then, before you entered the program, and who you are now?
I mean, I think I kind of hit on this a little bit, but before starting in the program, I feel like I was really in survival mode. It was really about how I could maintain going to work, keeping a full-time job, keeping some stability for Hunter, and so that I could be as strong as I could for him. So I was exhausted, I was anxious, I was constantly worrying about how I was gonna make ends meet, how we were gonna be able to go from the shelter to our own home situation, how we were gonna be able to move up in life. I think the biggest thing that I felt at that point was I felt so alone. I didn't have family surrounding me. It was truly what felt like me and Hunter against the world. So I think the biggest thing that I have to thank Bridge of Hope for is that I finally have a sense of confidence. I have a sense of being supported. I have a sense of hopefulness. I have a community now that walks with me through so many journeys. And they've been there for the ups and the downs and have really swooped right in and been like a family for Hunter as well. I also have a safe home, which I didn't have before starting the program. So I feel like Hunter and I finally have a future that we are able to build together with the love and support of everyone that's coming to our lives.
I think you have pretty much answered this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway, and this will be the last question for Steph. So if you could say one thing, two things, three things, to the donors who make Bridge of Hope possible, what would it be?
I would say the biggest thing, like I kind of hit on, is it's hard. It's hard as a single parent. You need support, you need that sense of community. There's such a desperate need for housing out there. And if there's any way that anybody's able to help in that journey for even one person, it can change the trajectory of not only their lives, but their children's lives. And it can have a lasting impact for generations to come.
Didn't Steph do a fantastic job?